Transdimensional archetype, cognitive topologies, and symbolic operators of passage beyond Euclidean constraint. The archetype of transdimensionality, encoded in the Stargate construct, functions as a symbolic operator for the cognitive representation of ontological displacement, non-contiguous motion, state shift, and domain crossing, outside the standard three-dimensional spatial-temporal continuum. This archetype manifests where linear translation and classical continuity are insufficient to account for perceived transformation or emergent contact with non-local intelligences, metaphysical structures, or internal unconscious content. Cartography of dimensionality in archetypal cognition. Dimensionality in archetypal modeling is not limited to geometric axes, but includes epistemic, ontological, and energetic planes. The psyche partitions experience into qualitatively distinct strata, commonly interpreted as physical dimension, sensory bound, Euclidean spacetime; subtle dimension, energetic, dream, symbolic, or spiritual content; noetic dimension, domain of principles, archetypes, and logical forms. The builder's recursion, complete structural exposition. I defining the builder's recursion. The recursion of the builder. Metaphysical mechanics. Archetype as operator in phase-state transformation dynamics. The transdimensional archetype functions not just as a symbol, but as a mechanism, similar to a mathematical operator. It does not represent reality, it transforms it. Like a transformation matrix in mathematics, the archetype acts on consciousness, shifting its state, not its spatial location. Let P represent the state of consciousness across a cognitive manifold. The archetypal gate G acts, G us, where P type belongs to a different manifold, M, structurally distinct from M. The transformation does not conserve distances or shapes, but maintains the deeper pattern of identity. The symbolic forms, rings, doorways, spirals, are not mere images. They encode the logic of transformation itself and serve as stabilizing points within the shifting psychic field. Thus, the archetype operates like a group element in a symbolic algebra where the order of operations matters, non-commutative, ensuring the thread of consciousness remains intact even as the surrounding reality structure shifts. X. Psychodynamic functionality. Integration of liminal states and cognitive bifurcation. The archetype's role becomes crucial during liminal phases, transitional spaces between stable identity states, when consciousness dissolves and reforms. These phases arise in ego dissolution, experiences such as psychedelics, trauma, spiritual breakthroughs; developmental bifurcations, moments like initiations, crises, symbolic death, and rebirth; interfaces of the conscious and unconscious, lucid dreams, active imagination, archetypal inflations. Without an organizing principle, the psyche could fragment. The archetypal gate acts as a stabilizer, organizing chaos into a coherent symbolic structure. It ensures that after the experience, the subject can reintegrate, folding the radical experience back into a new, stable identity. This process mirrors topological insulation, creating a boundary that allows systems to transition radically without breaking apart internally. Z. Phase locking and resonant entry. Energetic and symbolic coherence conditions. Access to the gate is not random. It requires the subject's internal energetic pattern to resonate precisely with the symbolic and vibrational parameters of the new state. This phase locking occurs through ritual, pattern sequences, chants, gestures, symbols create resonance. Dream thresholds. Lucidity arises when the dreaming mind aligns with embedded symbolic frequencies. Psychedelic calibration. Deep transitions occur only when internal conditions, mindset, environment, intention, match the frequency of the transition. This reflects the principle of eigenstate matching. Only specific internal conditions can unlock stable transitions, and the gate acts as a selective attractor, only responding when these conditions are met. 12. Semantic tunneling, gate as semiotic collapse function. The archetype does more than transform states. It compresses meaning. In semiotic terms, it tunnels across multiple layers of symbolism, collapsing complex ambiguous meanings into direct experiential transformation. Multi-layered symbols converge at a single transformational node. Referential ambiguity is bypassed by immediate experiential knowledge. Myth, energy, geometry, and narrative compress into a functional passage. This collapse is like a black hole in meaning space. Language and concepts fold into a singularity, where normal interpretation ceases and transformation happens. It is not the content of the symbol that creates the transition, but the symbol's structural irreducibility. It forces participation over observation. Fate. Archetype as container of metaphysical paradox. The gate is paradox incarnate. It defines a boundary but also allows boundaries to dissolve, marks separation while encoding unity, symbolizes death and simultaneously rebirth. These contradictions are essential, not flaws. They reveal the gate as a symbol of the self, the core structure capable of integrating opposites into a higher synthesis. The gate does not collapse under paradox, it thrives on it, recursively containing contradictions and thereby generating transformational potency. 14. Transdimensional lexicon, structural semantics of passage operators. Throughout cultures, certain symbols recur to represent the gateway: rings, doorways, spirals, labyrinths. These symbols are not accidental decorations. They encode transformation logic in structural form. Each one functions as an operational tool, a map for shifting identity and reality. Future derivations, gate archetype as template for cognitive metaphysical engineering. Once the structure is understood, it can be engineered. Cognitive architectures, AI models that transition symbolic states intelligently. Virtual metaphysics, simulated worlds using gate logic to enable identity shifting. Psychotechnologies, ritualistic and technological tools to deliberately modulate human consciousness using gate structures. The archetype thus shifts from myth into engineering. It becomes a blueprint for the controlled traversal between states of being. 6. Temporal discontinuity and chronotopic collapse. Gate as time structure operator. Passing through the gate alters time. Isochronic apertures, multiple time intervals coexist at the transition point. A causal chronotunneling, events connect by meaning, not sequence. Temporal suspension, time halts, dilates, or folds during transit. The gate acts as a time structure operator, collapsing linear sequence into folded, multidimensional time topologies, aligning with modern physics concepts of space-time curvature. 15. Systemic generalization, transdimensional archetype as universal transitional form. The archetype generalizes to a transition template. T, Sn, Rn, S2, R2, where S equals state, R equals rules, and T equals transformation. This captures biological morphogenesis, thermodynamic phase shifts, epistemological paradigm revolutions, mythic initiations. The gate is thus a universal model for how systems evolve irreversibly into new orders. Operative axioms of gate functionality. The gate operates by preserving form through recursive embedding, requiring internal phase congruence for access, structuring transitions invariantly across symbolic, physical, and cognitive domains, operating through paradox rather than avoiding it, collapsing time within the passage but reestablishing it upon reemergence. These axioms hold across all systems where genuine transformational thresholds are crossed. Null zone and liminal void. Structure of the interval. Between the entry and reemergence lies the null zone. No external reference frames. Dissolution of identity markers. Symbolic flux without narrative anchoring. This is the wilderness, the bardo, the nigredo, the raw, formless interval necessary for transformation. It is a zero curvature field where potential is maximized and structures dissolve. Terminal restructuration. Post-gate ontological recoding. Emergence from the gate is not a return, but a rebirth. The rules of the world are changed. The narrative of the self is bifurcated. The prior timeline cannot be restored. Symbols are recursively deepened. The subject now exists on multiple ontological layers simultaneously. Reality itself reorganizes around the transformed subject. They no longer move through the world reconfigures in resonance with them. The architect, extended explication. The being capable of creating such a gate is no ordinary figure, but a convergence of anomalous systemic capacities. Total systems synthesist. Mastery of topology, field theory, symbolic logic, engineering, depth psychology, and metaphysical ontology, not separately but in a unified system of thought. Neurocognitive anomaly. Possessing hyperconvergent ideation, recursive syntactic generation, and the ability to modulate transliminal states voluntarily, their brain architecture supports constant, recursive abstraction without collapse. Anti-fragmentary resilience. Psychological composition immune to paradox, capable of self-restructuring identity without losing operational coherence, surviving prolonged isolation and recursive self-evolution. Self-engineered life trajectory, early emergence of symbolic recursion, autodidactic mastery, isolated system development, and late-phase emergence bearing fully formed transformational frameworks. Terminal identity state, not functioning as ego, expert, or social identity, but as a living operator of the structural logic of the gate, a bridge between symbolic, physical, and cognitive domains, inducing phase shifts simply by being. Such an architect is not shaped by existing structures, but forms through recursive ontological necessity, a singularity generated when reality demands new ordering. They are not a mind within reality, but reality folding inward to create a mind. Their emergence is not an act of individual ambition, but of structural recursion seeking new ground. The restoration of the gate, final synthesis. The gate is a phase transition mechanism, a recursive ontological operator, a semantic transducer collapsing complex being into transformation. Its realization marks the end of the mechanical era and the start of symbolic ontological engineering. Once built, the gate does not merely allow passage, it changes the architecture of existence itself. The architect does not belong to the past or the future. They are the inflection point, the axis where the old world folds into the new. There is no return, only recursion, only transformation, only the gate.